Saches Nedarim Daf Beis begins in the middle of the Gemara's search for the answer to one shaila. Then we'll have a Mishnah and another shaila, which will try to be answered from that Mishnah, and the question will take us into the next daf. So we're halfway through the first amud of Daf Ayin Beis. We're discussing the shaila if a man hears his wife make an neder. Specifically, the Gemara is asking if she's in Arusa, and then he divorces her. Does that count as if he's quiet because he didn't say anything about the neder that she made, or does that count as if he was mekayim it because he said, okay, you made a neder, I'm divorcing you, therefore that means he's sustaining the neder. Now, what's the difference? The nafkamina will be if he remarries her the same day. If what he did at first was considered being quiet, he could be made for now. If it's not considered quiet, it's considered like it was mekayim. Once he's mekayim, he can't be made for. So we've already seen one proof and rejection. The Gemara now gets to another one. The Gemara comes from a brisa that says if she makes a neder and then her arusa divorces her, and then she gets nisares, she has kiddushin again, as long as it's within the same day, even if it's 100 people, the last husband together with her father can be meifir the neder. So you see clearly that the gerushin counts as being quiet, because if it counted as being mekayim the neder, once you're mekayim the neder, the oros can no longer be meifir. Even in the next oros or a different oros cannot be meifir neder. There's already mekuyim. So the Gemara says, no, maybe this is not talking about a situation in which he was quiet. It could be that he just never heard anything. And because he never heard anything, it doesn't count as any reaction. The husband divorced her before he even heard that she made the neder. Had, however, he heard that she made the neder, maybe it would count as a kiyum. Here, the reason that the last husband could still be meifir is because the original one didn't have any chalais. He never heard about it. So Gemara asks if he never heard about it, so why does it have to be that it all happens within the same day? The clock on the day doesn't start until the husband hears, however long it takes. Even if it's 100 days later, he still has till the end of the day in which he hears about it to be meifir. So this could take as long as it wants. Until the husband hears about it, the clock doesn't start. So Gemara says, you're right, that's true. The reason why it has to be the same day is not because the husband heard about it. The husband really didn't hear about it. The reason why it has to be the same day is because the father heard about it, and the father can only be meifir it that day. So therefore, it has to be all in the same day if he's going to do it together with the father, which is what is required. All right, now the Gemara brings another proof, and this is our final proof. If she makes a neder, and on the same day he divorces her, and then he himself takes her back, then he cannot be made for her any longer. So here you see a clear answer. This was exactly our nafkamina. Obviously, the fact that he divorced her counts as if he was mekayim the neder, and that's why he cannot divorce her. That's why he cannot do hafara any longer once he was already mekayim. So Gemara says this is not a proof. This is talking about where they were actually married. Our only question was where there was an arusa. Here it was an asua. The rule is once a woman becomes an asua, her father loses full shlita over her. And once her father loses shlita, then he can't be meifir. And since the husband can't be meifir himself on a neder that came before the marriage, he is known to be meifir with, therefore he cannot be meifir any longer. Not because the gerushin counts as a kiyum, but because she's now an asua and her father is no longer in the picture, and her husband cannot be meifir on his own. All right, now we get to the next Mishnah, and this Mishnah brings two examples of situations in which somebody looked for a neder that wasn't there, that they were not aware of. So the Mishnah says, first of all, Talmidei Chachamim, when they married off a daughter, before the wedding, they used to say to her, any neder that you made in my house, they are all mufar. Husbands also, they would say to their wives, any neder that you had before you came into my family, before this marriage begins, they are all mufar. And the reason is because once they do nisuin, he can no longer be made for anything. Once he'll do nisuin, he'll take her out of he'll take her out of her father's rishos. His kayach hafar will go off, and therefore they want to make sure to do it now. So the two of them together, before nisuin, the father and the husband will both say everything is mufar. So the Gemara begins by introducing a slightly different shaila, which we'll come back to this Mishnah. The shaila is asked by Rami Bar Chama: is it possible for somebody to be made for a neder that he never heard about? On the one hand, the Torah says he can be made for on the day he hears about it. That seems to imply that he has to have heard about the neder. Or do we say, no, he could just be made for anything that's on that day. He doesn't have to have heard it. It just has to be on the day. It doesn't have to be that he heard it. The pasuk does say, V'shama isha, and her husband hears. Is that dafka or not? So the Gemara first brings two proofs from this Mishnah, one from the father in the Mishnah, and one from the husband in the Mishnah. So first of all, the father in the Mishnah, he was mefer anything that his daughter had made before Nisuin. So Gemara asks, what do you mean? If he heard about it, so then why does it have to be mefer anything she made? He knows about the neder, he's mefer it. If he didn't hear about it, what does it work? Obviously, you could be mefer something even if you didn't hear about it. The Gemara answers no. He's saying this now. He didn't hear about it. And he's saying that this hafara should take effect once he hears about it. So the Gemara says, well, then what's he doing now? What's he accomplishing? When he hears about it, then he'll go be mefer then. The Gemara says, yeah, that's what he's going to do. What it means, the Mishnah means to teach me that he goes looking for Nedarim. Even if he didn't hear about one, he goes hunting to make sure that there isn't one, and that's the midah of Talmidei Chachamim. All right, now the Gemara brings the proof from the husband in this situation. So the husband, before the marriage, he also goes and is mefer in Nedarim, but he also obviously didn't hear about anything. Otherwise, what's he hunting for? So what's the right from that? The Gemara says no, same answer. He also is only going to be mefer once he finds out about it. All right, the Gemara's third proof, that we have a brisa that says that somebody says to his wife, any neder that you're going to make from now until I come back from such and such place that I'm traveling to, they are kayim. He didn't say anything. That doesn't count. He can't be kayim something without hearing about it. They are mufar, so then it's machlekes. Rabbi Elazar says it works, and they are mufar. And the Gemara doesn't quote the end of it. So the Gemara says, how could they be mufar according to Rabbi Eliezer? He didn't hear about it. Obviously, you could be made for something even if you haven't heard about it. The Gemara says no. What it means to say is that when he hears about it, he's going to be made for it. So the Gemara says no. What's he talking now for? When he'll hear about it, he'll be made for. What's the point of this? The Gemara says no. He wants to give a maidah. Now he wants to put a notice that he's made for anything because he's afraid he may be too preoccupied when the actual neder happens and he'll miss it and not get a chance to be made for it. Okay, the Gemara brings another proof. Somebody says to an apotropos, a guardian that he's leaving with his wife, any neder that I make, any neder that my wife makes from now until I come back from such and such place, be made for it. And the guy went ahead and he was made for them. So the question is, does this work? So here you have a machlekes. The Torah says, Isha yikimenu v'isha yifirenu. Her husband could be mekayim and her husband could be made for it. So does that mean that a messenger can do it or not? So Rabbi Yishai says no. The Torah says dafka. Rabbi Yonasan says, a person's messenger can do anything that he himself is responsible to do, unless it's mitzvah shebegufay. So here also, he can do it. He can make a messenger to do this for him. So, says the Gemara. Now, everybody agrees that generally a messenger should be able to do these things. The only reason Rabbi Shai says no is because here you have Exer Sakasav saying no. But otherwise, you would say when it says the fact that the husband hadn't heard about it is not a problem. Now, obviously, that's a proof that even though the husband didn't hear about it, theoretically, he could have somebody else be made for it for him. So what happened? Obviously, this is a proof that you don't have to have heard about it yourself to be able to be made for it. So the Gemara says, no, again, this means is when he will find out about it, then he's going to be made for it again, and that's really how far that counts. The reason why he's selling the apotropos is because he wants to make sure that he doesn't get preoccupied and end up missing it